last bottle. Another pressing reason for moving out soon.
Captain Nemo, if we ever do get off this island, I'd like to write your life story.
Yes. Whatever does a man do on an island like this for 8 years?
It depends on the man. I did what I've always done. Devoted my strength to destroying the concept of warfare. Your profession, Captain Harding.
Well, considering the ships and crews that you've sunk without mercy, you can't disturb my conscience.
Can't I? What I did was in the name of peace. Your war, like all wars, glories in devastation and death.
Oh, my war will set men free. That's a struggle that belongs to all men, don't you think?
Just how have you been able to carry out your crusade, Captain, without the Nautilus in operation?
A good question, Mr. War Correspondent. It'll please Captain Harding to know it did not entail the sinking of warships. So instead, I've been conducting experiments in horticultural physics.
What do what?
Experiments that will guarantee mankind an inexhaustible food supply. Yes. Surely you've seen the results.
Hey, that crab.
And the honeycomb.
The giant oysters you devoured. The bird that almost devoured you. You see, with the Nautilus, I was merely attacking the weapons of war. But now, I've conquered the causes. Famine and economic competition. Imagine wheat growing 40 feet high and sheep the size of cattle. When I've delivered my designs and apparatus to the world, my work will be over.
Hello and welcome to Still Watching the Skies for March 2026. I'm Robert Reineke.
I'm Natal Morel.
And unfortunately, Cody Lang could not be here today, but in his place, I'd like to welcome our guest for this episode, Hunter Fagan.
Hey, guys.
Listeners may know Hunter from Disorder, where we've previously been graced with Andy DeGenova and Michael Lyons. Hunter also hosts the podcast Grinning Hosts and Horrors from the Vault. So welcome to our humble podcast, Hunter.
Oh man, Robert, it's nice to meet you too, Nat. And just guys, this is quite the special thing. Being honest with you, on the down low, I don't do too many guest features anymore. It's just time is limited when you've been podcasting as long as I have. But when Robert came to me, he's like, "Hey, you want to do like an unofficial sequel episode to something you did on Disorder?" It was a little too tantalizing to pass up that opportunity, and then it also gives me a little bit of a chance to flex my theme park knowledge. It was perfect. Everything came together.
Well, I had no idea, but it is kind of a sequel of sorts. Anyhow, let me introduce our listeners. The returning listeners probably know of this spiel, but every month we explore the less discussed science fiction movies of the past. Some famous, some obscure, some good, some bad, some hard to describe at all of which we believe will create interesting conversation. That brings us to this month's film, 1961's Mysterious Island, directed by Cy Enfield. It may be the rare film that's more famous for the below-the-line credits than the above-the-line credits. It's based on the Jules Verne novel, where a group of imprisoned Union soldiers break out of a Confederate military prison in an observation balloon, along with a Confederate that they take prisoner. And they're whipped across country in a gale to land on an island in the Pacific. An island with an active volcano and where they encounter giant oysters and a giant crab, among other things. And they are soon joined by a pair of shipwrecked women and gain help from a mysterious benefactor. And then they have to figure out how to escape the island before the volcano erupts. The cast includes Michael Craig as Captain Cyrus Harding, Joan Greenwood as Larry Mary Fairchild, Michael Callan as Herbert Brown, Gary Merrill as Gideon Spilett, Herbert Lom as, well, we'll get to that in a bit. Beth Rogan is Alina Fairchild, Percy Herbert is Sergeant Pencroft, and Dan Jackson is Corporal Neb Nugent. The film was directed by Cy Enfield. The script was by John Preble, Daniel B. Ullman, and Crane Wilbur, adapting Jules Verne's 1874 novel, The Isle Mystérieuse. As I alluded to before, the two below the line credits of most interest are music is by Bernard Herrmann, and special effects are by Ray Harryhausen. The novel is a crossover sequel to Verne's famous 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea from 1870 and the novel In Search of the Castaways from 1861 to 1868, and is heavily influenced by Swiss Family Robinson and Robinson Crusoe. And every reference I've looked at notes that the timeline of the 20,000 Leagues and Mysterious Island contradict each other. So we can discuss that, I suppose. But without it out of the way, let's start with first impressions. And I'm going to ask Nat to lead off here. So take it away, Nat.
Yeah, two things. I also just want to note that Hunter's appearance on this podcast does not impact Cody's appearance on this podcast. It's just we had difficulty getting a hold of Cody. So Hunter has not killed Cody. Robert's not killed Cody. I haven't killed Cody. Cody, as far as we know, is alive and well. And we wish him well. And two, also might want to note that this was produced by Charles Schneer, which is such a great name for a producer. But no, going into this, I think we know that I'm a big fan of the I think was it 54 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and always happy to return to the world of Jules Verne again, especially happy to return to the world of Jules Verne when I'm aided by my buddy Ray Harryhausen. And I have to say, I have very mixed feelings on this movie, though. I think the below the line credits are some of the standout features. There are some issues that maybe we can talk about in terms of maybe some of the creature design, maybe some of the frequency, maybe how heavily the movie relies on some of the special effects, all of which I think are doing a very nice job. But ultimately, this kind of left me wanting a little bit more in the way of story. And to an extent performances. I think it looks really good. I did watch it on Tubi. There were some issues with the quality of I'm not sure if it's a transfer or however they're able to get their films, but yeah, I wish there had been a little bit more of a cohesive story in this. I've not read The Mysterious Island, so I'm not sure how closely it follows the book. I think
my understanding is that very
okay. I think some of the basic plot points are fairly good, but there is a curious change in terms of characterization of Nemo that maybe we can get into in some detail. But the main parts of it, you're going in here for the special effects. We can talk about reception of the music maybe a little bit later, but I think there's some nice standout sequences. I really do like the look and the cinematography of the film, and it's a fairly breezy 101 minutes. So yeah, I think it's fairly harmless. I'm glad to have seen it, but there's probably other Harryhausen movies I'm gonna revisit first or next maybe. So how about if I toss it over to you, Hunter, and get your initial thoughts?
All right. Well, I've got a lot to follow up here. Now, unlike what you said, I will say Cody reached out. He's like, I don't know who you are, but we are going to fist fight in the streets for this position tonight. So I hope he's doing well. I obviously won. But here we are. Let's talk a little bit about the Mysterious Island. And Robert, when you reached out and you're like, hey, your co-hosts and cast members, they've gone ahead and done some other Jules Verne pictures. Will you come on and do this one? I'm like, I really don't know too much about Jules Verne. I've seen a couple of the adaptations of Journey to the Center of the Earth, and obviously everything Verne touched in literature went on to influence any sort of nerd pop culture in some sort of way. And we're definitely going to have to get into that because while watching this, I'm like, huh. this is very much like a another movie that I am quite fond of that's much more recent, that definitely takes a lot of inspiration from it. Again, we'll get to that. And you said, well, are you familiar with Harryhausen? And I'm like, well, I'm familiar with special effects and creature effects, just given my horror and sci-fi appreciation and everything like that. But I don't think I've really seen a full Harryhausen picture. I think for most people, they've watched the clip shows, they've watched those terrible upscaled, here's Harryhausen puppetry and like full 120 FPS and everything like that. They're very familiar with the imagery of Harryhausen and the puppetry and the creature effects. But I imagine a lot of people haven't really dug into the filmography proper. So I was like, yeah, I would love to do this. And I'm a big physical media collector. That's always been my thing. Robert, I actually sent you a link where Indicator, who's a UK label that I'm quite fond of, they did a beautiful 2K restoration of The Mysterious Island. It was a great looking disc, and I'm so glad I splurged the $15 to get that over and into my collection and watch it. And yeah, so where does that leave us with the movie itself? Well, so Mysterious Island is obviously this beautiful mid-century technical, powerhouse. But that's unfortunately that's kind of all I think it really had going for it. I think it's very much a showcase for the effects, and as impressive as they are, I unfortunately had a little bit of a disconnect with the human characters here, and that's very
Mm.
important. I think when you're talking about 50,000 Leagues, I'm not as fond of that movie as a lot of people, but there is a human element and the psychological exploration of Nemo that I think is captivating. It captures your attention, and then when the squid shows up, it very much captures. It's that big bombastic moment that draws you in. It really has a significance that pulls you in. And here, it's very much cut from the same cloth of almost the slasher fare of the 80s or your horror kind of fodder. They are just people in a situation and you are here to see the monsters. It actually reminds me mostly of kind of the 50s creature flicks more than anything, Tarantula and Attack of the Giant Gia Monster and whatever, it's got a lot of that flavor, but it is so bolstered by the technical aspect of it and the craft. And there's a lot of beauty in the way things are, just the environment that you're put in. It's not the most like spectacularly shot film, but it it has a certain appeal to it that is nice. It's very pleasant. It's very Saturday morning cartoon, and that's a big part of the appeal. But it's not going to be something I reach for when I want to be immersed in something. It's more of just a entertaining, um, I don't want to say clip show, but it's an entertaining distraction. It's a diversion from when you don't want something too serious. And you're not always in the mood for something too serious. It definitely has its place, and I'm glad I kind of took the leap and went into the volcano with you guys.
Well, I'll pick up from there. I mean, I basically agree with you. This is not a great film, but it's an entertaining, breezy film, I think. Um, I mean, I wish, the stuff around the Harryhausen stuff was more entertaining, but I think there are some stuff there, and even the Harryhausen stuff. I think it has stuff going for it that I like quite a bit, and I do think we have to kind of place it in that uh, there was a big Verne boom in like the 50s and early 60s. I mean, kicked off by 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, so Disney has that going for them, but that was kind of followed up by Around the World in 80 Days, From the Earth to the Moon, Carl
Sure.
Siemens' Invention for Destruction, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and then we have Mysterious Island, and after this we have Master of the World with Vincent Price, uh, Valley of the Dragons, In Search of the Castaways, another Disney film, and 5 Weeks in the Balloon in 1962. Um, and, it also kind of follows up that, Disney Swiss Family Robinson was in 1960, so I feel like that is directly influence on this film because it spends most of his time on the castaways themselves. And unfortunately, I would agree that the characters I don't think are really well developed. Um, the captain Cyrus is basically just the captain. He's the guy in charge. Um, I do like Lady Mary. I feel that uh, she's playing the type,
She's a
but it's a
fox.
type. What?
She's a fox.
Yeah. And I do like Gideon, the newspaper man, is kind of being thrown in there. He adds some color to the
He's
surroundings,
hairy
doesn't
as a fox. That man has some epic chest hair.
Fair enough, but kind of like Herbert, he's just like the young male lead for the ladies, probably. Alina's the young female lead, so they get some romance, I guess. Neb, I mean, I guess it's notable that this is an integrated cast, but Neb really does have no character.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
will say for Neb's defense,
And,
um,
and
he is the first guy who is attacked by a monster on the island, and the second you see him get attacked by a crab, you're like, oh man, Black Guy is going to be the first guy to die in this movie, but he survives.
yes, he does.
Yes. Very low kill count in this movie, surprisingly.
Yeah,
Um,
surprisingly. And I guess Sergeant Pencroft, the Confederate, he has, I guess he's the comic relief more than anything. But I think the most memorable thing he does is get drunk on some rum they find in the cave. I mean, I feel like that's the weak link. I mean, I think late they tried to develop some kind of debate between Captain Cyrus and Captain Nemo, but I don't think that goes anywhere. It's really like we just want to see what Harryhausen has cooked up, and I think that is my main point of enjoyment of it. But even stuff as simple as the balloon escape in the beginning, I think that's well done. But then to get to the giant crab attack, and I feel like, oh, now we're really cooking here. And then
yeah.
the, I guess it's a Phorusacus, the giant bird, or it's called the terror bird, I guess is what it's called. But apparently it was for the Miocene era, about 23 to 5 million years ago. So after the Jurassic period, and that's somewhat memorable, and the giant bees are somewhat memorable, but it's kind of like um,
It's a lot of animals.
it's a lot of animals. I know Harryhausen's idea was to be all dinosaurs, and that didn't happen, obviously, and I kind of wish it did. Although I do
Hmm.
like the kind of underwater nautilus they end up battling, so um, I think that's fun stuff, but I don't know if there's anything else we want to talk about. Is there any attack that you kind of feels like a standout, or you go, yeah, this is Harryhausen? I mean, I feel like the crab attack is the standout because
Yeah.
I remember seeing that on our local UHF station. They're using that kind of as an advertisement for Mysterious Island every time that thing came on in the
Mhm.
70s. So I saw that crab attack quite a bit.
Mhm.
I mean, it is quite metal that they just gutted an actual crab and they're like, we're going to stick some wires in it and have them go to town. But you know what it reminded me of? And I believe you guys will see the comparison here. It feels like a tech demo in the way of almost kind of like the last 20 years, or maybe even 30 years now, of Zemeckis filmmaking in particular, where it is so centered on the technological side of it that
Hmm.
I feel that the characters take a little bit of a back seat. Meanwhile, I feel like so much of the best stuff is it's great if you can have a high budget and really have great creatures and everything like that. And there are great creatures here, but my point being is sometimes when the budget's not as high or the creativity's not as high, you really have to expand on those characters and do a lot of work with the human element. And I think that was part of what I was looking for. I think the James Mason and Kirk Douglas dynamic from the Disney film, the 54 film. It is so it's just so captivating to watch. And like I said, when the squid's not there, you're not thinking about the squid to the point where when it shows up, you're like, oh yeah, that happens in this movie too. That's incredible. And then here it's more of the technical showcase, and that's fine. It just adds to that, like I described it, it's that Saturday morning cartoon element of it. But
Yeah.
to your point, Robert, I think for better or for worse, the most enthralling that the picture gets is actually the first 10 minutes when they're in the Civil War and they're escaping on the hot air balloon. It's like, all right, we're cooking with gas right now. This is some really exciting stuff. And then we get to the island, and you kind of wish it kept that momentum going forward from that
Hmm.
moment.
Yeah, I mean, it starts in the middle of a prison break, so
Right. I
that's
mean,
the way to get
just
started.
throw me in.
Well, they also seem to go out of their way to actually get a collection of people who normally wouldn't get along at that time
Hmm.
period too, because you have like a Confederate soldier, you have a Union soldier, you have an ex-slave, and I would feel like they would do a lot more with the dynamic of that group, but I don't feel like they ever actually get into any of that. And yeah, to your point, Hunter, there really isn't a standout dynamic like you have with Ned Land and I forget what Peter Lorre's character is in that. Even he
Mm.
or the boring ass scientist from that and
And Peter,
Nemo.
yeah, yeah, Nemo, yeah.
But I mean, even still with that, like again, I really like the Harryhausen work in here, but with the giant squid, and I don't want to keep comparing everything to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but hey, it's
It
opening
invites you
Adelphi.
to.
It does. But when you see that giant squid, like part of it, the reason it's so impactful is because that is kind of the big special effect that you don't see as frequently. Like there's a lot of other great underwater shots. There's kind of like a
Mm.
shark attack. But I mean, they're kind of like different, they're in a different vein. It's not like a giant special effect that's a showstopper. Everything uh, in this movie is kind of a showstopper, and you can get a little bit of burnout. And I do wish that it had been something other than animals. But I will say, I think this more than any other Harryhausen movie I've seen probably is right up there for humans actually interacting with and like getting gripped by or riding. Like
Mm.
there is a lot more interaction with the puppets in this than I can recall in like a lot of other Harryhausen movies. Like obviously getting grabbed by the claws of the crab, but I also think of like riding on the bird.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
when it's attacking and just how the compositing is done really, really well, where there
Definitely.
is, yeah, not a lot of seams that you can see with those.
Yeah. And I think one of the more interesting things for me is while watching, making those direct parallels into how have we seen this adapted later on? Like there is this very fascinating circle of life where, obviously the 33 King Kong inspired Mysterious Island. And then Peter Jackson's like, I love Harryhausen. Let me literally do this with the infamous dark pit sequence in King Kong 2005. Let me literally do the Mysterious Island, but my take on it, and then the way that it's kind of circled going forward. I mentioned later on there's a modern film that this, or earlier on there was a modern film that this reminded me quite a bit of, and I'm quite fond of this movie. It's actually the 2017 Kong Skull Island, and following that
Hmm.
kind of. Um, it's not only just the setting, but the survivalist archetypes and then the creatures are very inspired not only by the Harryhausen kind of template. It's not a remake, but it is so heavily like the fingerprints are all over it, and to trace that, I think is so interesting. It's this very circular inspiration, and it's just fun tracing all of this stuff from 100 years ago all the way up until 2017, and it'll happen again.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you guys, but I think Herbert, the young soldier, is the only one that has any sort of arc because, I mean, he says he's kind of ashamed that he was caught running away from a battle, and that his arc is completed when he runs into and confront the terror bird when it's after Lady Mary and Alina. So
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah.
he
And so,
so that's but that's about the only arc in this film,
yeah.
if
And
you want to
I
call that an arc.
you both mentioned as well, but something I did want to mention before I forgot. I think that for something that there aren't a lot of characters that I personally attach to, but it was still a very easy breezy watch, and a lot of that just comes down to the pacing. Even though there wasn't some big death scene or these like
No.
character moments between them, just
Mhm.
it kept you entertained. There were very few, all right, well, I'm going to pause this and I'm going to do this, or I'm going to, look at check this text message that I've got or anything. It's a very straightforward movie, and that's a blessing because sometimes these things get so bogged down. And while I was waiting to see the next, special effects showcase, it I never felt bored while waiting for those moments, and that goes a lot further than one would think.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, and I do think I guess they did this in studio, but it doesn't look like it's in studio too often there, and it's uh I brought up Swiss Family Robinson, and I feel like Castaways on a desert island is almost always interesting anyhow,
Hmm.
and I know that that's like I won't say half, but uh uh Verne did his books about castaways and pirates and that too, among his uh, more fanciful ones. So Verne was not a boring writer, although I've never been a real fan of his character work. But stuff happens in his books, and that translates to the movies too.
Yeah.
They're they're kind of breathless in that way. Um, he's not like H.G. Wells that had the very solid idea that he wanted to explore. This is more like I know. I think Verge preferred for his work for scientific romances, and I think you see that in Mysterious Island, the movie.
He's
Hmm.
also, I think Verne is more tied to locations or exploring different like geographical areas, whereas I think yeah, Wells tends to be more focused on people. Like they'll take place in certain things, but like you're going to go off to a far exotic land, typically in like a Verne novel, or you're going to find like the unexplored country. And there's kind of a little bit more
Are you
sense
getting
of
around the
wonder
world in
than
80 days?
yeah, there's a little bit more wonder than cynicism, comparing Verne to Wells.
Yeah, and we talk about the gritty, dark era that we've moved into ever since the mid 2000s or whatever, but I did find myself wanting a little bit of that Dr. Moreau kind of exploration from Nemo. Even though like he is the good doctor, so to speak. I think like what we've got here with the what would we call it? The God in the jungle archetype is something that I was really hoping that we'd explore a little bit more. A little bit of that Prospero, a little bit more of that even Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. Like I want to see this mythical figure in the jungle that's, he's this omnipresent, almost omniscient figure running things. And I think my expectation was very lofty for what I, was kind of expecting from this 1961 pulp film. But there is a very interesting story there, and it had me thinking, like, yes, not everything needs to be remade, but we're literally talking classic literature to go down that avenue, and maybe they have in another adaptation that I haven't explored. That's kind of the story that I would love to see, kind of go from this.
That's the strangest thing with this too, because I don't think anyone could fault you for being somewhat disappointed by that, because I think it's like 20 minutes before the end of the movie that Nemo actually shows up.
Right.
And it's kind of insane, given you know, given that I can't imagine even at the time that it was like that big of a secret that, hey, Captain Nemo's in this, and somehow he was able to get a hold of bleach and change his hair color. To say
with
nothing
his
of,
with his
And
great
go
value
back in time.
Nautilus, no less.
yeah, like he's, what is it, Billy Idol, proto, but um, But no, it's nuts. And what's even more nuts is like, okay, they are doing some parallels back to like the design of the Nautilus looks very similar to what it was in the Disney 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The fact that like the
Right.
organ is, prominently displayed. Toccata and Fugue is played. You have another, not necessarily a squid, but a nautilus, kind of, not really, but And yet it's so strange that like, where's the movie that talks about his character turn from being the science pirate, being the guy who preys upon like these vessels, and becomes like this man who is sort of driven by revenge against mankind, now all of a sudden wants to become its savior. And
Hmm.
that character turn sort of like from a villain who at least has like some noble intentions to somebody who's just like an outright savior is
Right.
it's just odd that that's not even explored, like not even with a throwaway line in this movie.
No, I mean the only way it really is explored is that the Captain Cyrus says that he doesn't trust Nemo because he, you know, killed a bunch of people,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
he seems skeptical. But it's like, well, we don't really have a choice here but to trust him, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I mean the ending is very similar to like what you would get in sort of a lot of movies of this where it's like, okay, Nemo dies, we're done. But like the
Yeah, they
last
never,
couple go ahead.
they don't really even show him getting off the island. All they do is show him raising the ship.
Yeah. I mean they start sailing and then they talk about like how they want to spread the word of his good deeds, but no, it's just it's a weird thing
Hmm.
to end on in such a weird turn all of a sudden because
Yeah.
this is the man who saved our life.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
so glad we got a follow up to this with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Several. No joke, one of my favorite bad movies. I think it's a joy for a USA Network television, movie. We used to call them like Saturday dad movies because that's kind of when you would watch them on USA or whatever. But yeah, seriously though, no, I completely agree. You want to see more of the exploration, especially as we brought up several times, and I know we've got to move on from the comparisons at some point. I mean, heck, you even said
I
it
don't think
15
you
minutes
have
ago or
to.
whatever. Yeah, but it's just like you don't want to constantly. It's not that, oh, like Harrison Ford would say, it's not that kind of movie, kid, right? So here we are, but it does set the precedent because it is so ingrained in that character. That interpretation is always going to be intrinsically tied to it. If you are going to do this unofficial sequel, you want to see more in line with the Mason-esque character. And yeah, it's just it's one of those things where I'm like, I will take your silliness, but give me something to take away at the end. And it's like, I'll give you two lines. You shall have these two slices of bread, and then we're going to go back to having fun. And that's okay. It's just what my expectation was versus what I actually received.
And I think that you can still say that without even having to compare it to the previous movie because everybody who is familiar with Nemo is, if they don't know him from the Disney movie, at least knows him from the book. And I think that that's
Right.
still a pretty popular book, was at the time, and probably still better known than the Mysterious Island. But
Hmm.
you know Nemo as a villain. He's the villain. However,
Hmm.
you could say maybe more of an anti-hero, but even still, he's the primary antagonist of that. And that's his characterization. And to see such a turn of it, from whatever source that you're getting, I think deserves some explanation.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's by far the most well-known character in this one.
And probably the most well-known character in like all of Verne's output.
Definitely.
Maybe Phineas Fogg, but that
Mhm.
would be it.
I'd say Nemo.
Yeah.
Oscars aside. But
I mean,
um,
those are the two, though. I think those are definitely the two.
mhm. I will say one thing I do really like with Nemo in this. The look is weird, and still I don't know how he gets bleach on the island. But one thing I do appreciate is that just the art direction and the sets noticeably improve when Nemo's around. I love no, no, in all seriousness, outside of the
Mhm.
Nautilus, I really like the look of the Nautilus, but I love the cave that he's in. I love the purples and the yellows and the
Mhm.
beehive or the honeycomb in the background, that they still keep that aspect of it, like the stalactites and It just reminds me of like the when you enter the giant monkey head in Monkey Island. But also my favorite thing in the movie is the scuba tank shells. Like
Yes.
that is amazing. I love that design choice. And like that sort of thing I would forgive even more for the movie if they sort of like kept that. Even the undersea city, I think is
I
fantastic.
was going to say the Undersea City was one of the big, like, what do you mean we're not going in there? Like, why
Yeah.
aren't we spending 3 hours in there? I want to know about the Under the Sea City with your seashells. Like, show me that movie. But I get it. It's just a set piece. And, I can't remember if that one was a set or not, but there are some absolutely gorgeous matte paintings in this too,
Yeah,
with the environments. I love the log crossing scene, which you can definitely say,
that's the
inspired.
King Kong. Yeah,
Yeah, that is the Peter Jackson King Kong aesthetic to a T. And going back to the original, of course, but Jackson was like, "We're taking that 100%." But yeah, there's some really beautiful like design aesthetic work, and I kind of wish that I've seen really fluid films that were earlier than this, but a lot of them from this era have a very particular shooting style where it is kind of that medium shot, and it doesn't really explore what you can do with the camera very much. I kind of wish that we got to just see the environment a little bit more, do a little bit more creative exploration, and maybe it just wasn't that kind, it's not that kind of movie, kid. But I think that would have gone a long way towards environmental set dressing that I wish we got a little bit more of.
Mhm.
I will say, I whenever they cut to the volcano, I always think that's a nice looking shot.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I've got great news for you, Robert. If you ever make it out to Tokyo Disney Sea, that is actually the primary land that is out there. It's a Jules Verne inspired land. There's a 20,000 Leagues attraction, and there is also a Journey to the Center of the Earth attraction.
Oh
And it
my.
all takes place inside Mount Prometheus, is what they call it. So you can go see all of that. They've built it to scale. So Disney basically said, "Oh, you want to take us? Well, we're going to take from you later on, and you can go to Asia to see it." So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a Columbia film, so I feel like they're definitely copying Disney and not doing it as well.
Oh yeah.
Although,
Is is this Jules Verne land at least narrated by James Mason?
There is some James Mason incorporation, but it's mostly at Disneyland Paris because there they did a Verne-inspired version of their Tomorrowland. They said, "Hey, we're tired of trying to keep up with the 50s aesthetic. Let's do the very stylized European version of the future, kind of like Journey to the Moon and that sort of thing." And there was actually a walkthrough with the Nautilus, and I know all this because I lived in Germany for a long time growing up. So that was kind of the home park, but there was a walkthrough of the Nautilus that had the organ and James Mason narration as you're walking through it, and that it ultimately culminated in the squid attack on the actual Nautilus, which was
I
pretty
I
cool.
love the idea that in basically like Disneyland Paris, the monument to, their authorial contribution to Disney is dominated by an Englishman.
That's exactly right. That's that's it.
I will say I do give them props. So they have a sequence in the air with the hot air balloon. They have sequences on the land, and they have sequences underwater. So they at least mix it up enough um, during the runtime here. So
Oh yeah. Land,
it,
earth, and sea. Got to cover it.
I
yeah,
like that they also eat everything that they kill too.
they're following fair chase principles.
Hmm.
Yep. I mean, they make clothing. We get an actual Wilma dress at one point. It's incredible. Yeah.
Very resourceful. Let's see. I need to check my notes to make sure
I will say I think Neo's plan seems I mean idea of growing giant food sounds okay, but I think he started at the wrong end of the food chain here. You got all the predators are giant sized, and what do they eat? Shouldn't like that island be just like cleared off of all vegetation at this point? That's what I think. If he started like giant plants and giant like grain fields, that would be something else.
Well,
But
maybe he did. Maybe they
maybe
were
they
all
did and they
eaten.
never found it. Yeah, I suppose.
Also, how is he? I mean, this is so stupid to like nitpick like what Nemo's plan is, but how is he going to get them off the island? Um, like, if the
Well,
Nautilus doesn't work, like, don't
I
you think
think
that
he
should be
said
his first
he
priority?
could let them build that boat that they're working on.
Yeah. Well, see, they actually built a second park in the middle of San Diego. So they're going to send the rescue teams out there, recover the genetic experiments, and then Peter Ludlow is going to bring them on over. No, but it is a good question. Like, what do you do with this giant prehistoric bird? I don't know. Maybe we ride them into battle in future wars, that sort of thing. Um, I don't know. Maybe he's contributing to the war's crisis instead of this food process that he has in mind. But yeah, it does seem like, hey, if you're going to try this, why don't we use some more docile species? Can we get a couple cows out there? What are we doing with these goats? Can we just get some supersized goats?
Or a turtle, and then you just strap the Nautilus to that, and
Yeah.
it carts you home.
I love to these Civil War soldiers, nothing tastes better than cheese made of goat milk. That is an actual line about 30 minutes into the movie.
Well, cheese made for goat milk tastes very good, but yes.
Look, I get it, but hey, it's the best thing. It's why we need to have these goats, not for their meats or their hide or anything. We need to make some cheese, baby.
Oh yeah.
These soldiers are clearly not from Vermont or Wisconsin.
Robert being such a cheese purist from Wisconsin.
My grandparents were dairy farmers.
This
I
is
get
true.
to be a cheese purist.
I've gotten this spiel twice in the past 3 weeks.
I like
But
to think you were just you kind of shrugged at the screen, Robert, and you're like, you know what? He's right. That's some good eating right there.
it's no Wisconsin cheese, but if you're stuck in the 19th century, post-war America, and stranded in the South Pacific, it'll do.
Yeah. Mysterious Island cheese. Now that's a brand name right
That
there.
is a good brand name.
Yeah, Mysterious Island goat cheese. I would be so tempted for that.
I imagine that would
My
be illegal
understanding
to
is,
import into
yeah,
this country, though. But
my understanding is they don't really have the ingredients to make cheese either. It's more than milk.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you guys, because one of my questions is obviously we start off with this group of dudes for half of the runtime. How common is the woman suddenly appears trope in
I am
these
glad
60s
that you
movies?
I am glad that you asked that, because that and just random pirates showing up are two big
Right.
coincidences.
And maybe that's what kept the pacing going. It's just like my thoughts about why are these people here? How did they get here? Why is this in the story? Maybe we could have put that into the group of guys instead, but no. We have to have a leading lady for the men to latch onto. We've already got hunks for other people to latch onto, so we need something for everybody.
Well, this does predate Gilligan's Island, but I will say, just taking this and that it is fairly common to have attractive women of all ages just randomly show up on deserted islands.
It's what's that joke where one of the comedians is like, "Man, I just really thought from watching cartoons growing up, quicksand was going to be a much bigger problem.
Yes.
Why aren't there more women showing up on random beaches across the world?"
So, I know, and that bring up another thought. I mean, screenwriting 101, they mentioned maybe that Captain Cyrus kid marry us. Well, he's a land captain. Well, Captain Nemo shows up, so why don't they have him marry him?
There you go.
There's the setup and the payoff is not there.
You want to talk about payoff? Can we talk about Nemo's death scene? Not to jump there, but
Go ahead.
Nemo's death scene was a little underwhelming. I think
Yeah.
we could say it is Not the most convincing death, which is fine. I've seen my share of unconvincing deaths in my time. I think it is just I think that is something I'm looking for. Like Nat, you were saying just kind of how he shows up and he's a different version of the character. We're not too sure about why he's this version of the character, but we're happy to see him anyways. He shows up, basically does nothing except shoots a bird, and then he's gone. And he's crushed unceremoniously. And they're like, we will have to tell the world about this great man. I'm reminded of that Robot Chicken sketch where Luke is crying on the Millennium Falcon about Ben Kenobi being struck down, and Leia's like, "You knew the man for about 10 minutes, and you're acting like he was everything to you." And that's kind of how I feel about Nemo in this movie.
And do they even know that he dies? Like they're already taking off in the boat when the debris is falling on the Nautilus.
There you go. It's a fake ending. It's a fake death scene because they really thought they were going to get that sequel. But yeah, there is actual dialogue that says it's a shame we couldn't save the man who saved us, or I'm paraphrasing there. So they know he's dead telepathically or something. Maybe they've got like The Shining,
I
and they
think
could just
they're
hear him
just
like Dick Halloran.
I think it's just kind of like yeah. Now that's a prequel where Neb is like Neb O'Halloran and
Oh, here we go.
but I don't know, maybe it's just they're excusing themselves because like, well, we're already on the ship. We already got the sails up.
The volcano's exploding. We don't want to go back there.
He's as good as dead, so we're just gonna say he's dead.
Yeah. It's look, it's if I see you getting mauled by a bear or a werewolf or something like that, I'm gonna be like, look, I loved you, buddy, but there's very little I can do in this situation. I
And who
just
could
gotta keep
blame you?
running. Yeah,
That's-
thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't even come after you if I were turned into a werewolf. Robert, I probably would because Robert would be like, "You turned into a werewolf. That means you have to bite me because I've been wanting to be a werewolf my entire life." So,
There you go. Well, it's all fun and games until your best friend shows up as a decomposing corpse in your hospital bed, and things go south very quickly.
now that's a good sequel too.
Yeah.
They raised the boat up as the same plot as the book and I guess movie Raise the Titanic, where they put the balloon in it and they go, well, just raise it all the way up.
Which I think actually was a Uncle Scrooge comic before Raise the Titanic.
Okay, that makes
Nice.
sense.
Yes. So once again, The Simpsons may have predicted a lot, but Uncle Scrooge predicted more than you know.
The question is, did he get this from from Mysterious Island, or did Scrooge come up with it first?
I don't think they had ping pong balls back in Jules Verne's time, which is, I think, what they do both in the Uncle Scrooge comic and in Raise the Titanic. The principle, I think, likely is the same, but the specific means of it are somewhat different.
Mm.
Now, one thing I will say, we have not talked about the music, and Robert, you said that the two bylines below it are really the standout parts of this movie.
At least the most famous parts.
Okay.
I mean, Cy Enfield's most famous director effort is he did Zulu in the 1960s.
And Zulu Dawn, he also was an uncredited writer on Night of the Demon.
Well, that's good too.
hmm
Which is a better movie than Mysterious Island.
I will agree.
And better written.
And potentially, I don't know, I don't want to say better effects, but a better use of effects.
Mm.
The payoff of the big effect is much better executed.
There's
But,
not many facts in there, but the ones that hit the mark.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna try to do this because I did not realize until after the fact that Bernard Herrmann did the music for this, and at the end of the movie, they do play a portion of the score unceasingly. So I am gonna see if I can actually do this. We tried this as an experiment earlier, so we'll see. Okay, this is still set to it. Let's see. Can we hear this?
All right, come on. We got to get the women on board and get back for Nemo.
Okay, they do say that they'll get back for Nemo. Now listen to the score here. Fast forward a little bit here. Yeah. That's it. No. We'll get it. We'll get it. There we go. Okay. This specific part of the score, it plays for like 90 seconds straight, and it's the same thing. The da 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 da. Like I expect a little better from my Bernard Herrmann than this. And when you listen to some parts of it, it does sound a little reminiscent of maybe Vertigo. I will say I actually do like the opening score a little bit, but outside of that, like there are two bits of this that are memorable, actually really one and a half, and the one that is the most memorable I can't stand. So that's a long way of saying I don't like the music. What are your guys' thoughts?
I I don't know if it's like a great adventure score, but I do think it adds to some of the momentum that I felt, the kind of just the cohesiveness, because I thought the score did some interesting things. Like obviously this is a very brass heavy score and there's not a lot of strings, which I think when you think of kind of the adventure archetype, obviously you think of like your Williams and things like that, which are very, you think of Indiana Jones and that sort of thing when it comes to your adventure scores. But I liked that there were features in the music that correlated to the monsters. Like there is a bit of that clacking nature to like the crab attack, which I thought was interesting. And then Nemo, I like that it's more understated than the rest of it. It's like obviously they use the pipe organ as kind of his primary instrument, but I like the distinguishment because as much as the character of Nemo unfortunately is not treated with the kind of once again the God in the jungle reverence kind of mysticism that you want from him, I think the score complements like it fills in the gaps even if you want more from the actual portrayal. So like is it something I'm going to turn on and I'm going to listen to? Not really, but in context of the film, I thought it did more than it had to, and I give it credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, it's certainly not Bernard Herrmann's most memorable score, and I kind of feel like, maybe he had some ideas and Cyan feels said, yeah, go with that. Well, I feel like Hitchcock would have said, that's a start, but, you gotta work on that a bit more. But it's like, yeah, that's good. Let's go with it. I feel like was the result there. But, it's not Bernard Herrmann's best or even most memorable of this period, that's for sure. I mean,
Mm.
this is a year after Psycho, if we're talking about all strings. So,
Hmm. Yeah,
uh,
this seems like some bits and pieces that he was like playing around with, like sketching it out on the napkin.
Mm. Yeah, I there was just as an aside when I was looking it up earlier, apparently this was kind of reused. I was curious if it was one of those scores where people were just like, well, it's not really too well known for its movie. Maybe we can just pluck it and insert it
Mhm.
wherever we want. And apparently it was most prominently used in the Lost in Space TV series. So I found that pretty interesting as, just kind of like a little aside. But
Huh.
yeah,
mm. But John Williams worked on that series too, did he?
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
I think he wrote the theme. I don't know if he was the regular composer on it, but yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like, I think some of what we are talking about here, saying is kind of light, is basically kind of that early '60s period, anyhow. Well, the code is still in effect, but they haven't loosened it up yet, and they will
Hmm.
over the next decade, but it's still pretty tame. So we're kind of in that period where of the '60s that is not as interesting as it's going to be.
Yeah, there's we get into some really wacky stuff later on, but it's still so early right now
Yeah.
that I can't really fault them because it does, like I said at the top of the show, it does feel like a colorized, we've got a little bit more money towards special effects. Let's level up the 50s creature flick, right?
Yeah.
It's very much kind of cut from that cloth. And I will say it was funny. I had a little laugh to myself because as much of the conversation is these kids, these adults, these grandparents don't get off their phones during movies anymore. It's like you can't tell me that people weren't just making out during half this thing at the drive-in when it originally released, you know? So you may be paying a little bit more attention, but what do you expect me to do between the giant crab and the giant bee? We're going to second, you know?
I think they're arguing over who's hotter, Lady Mary or Alina.
Look, everybody's a winner in that situation.
Oh yeah, clearly Lady Mary. I'm
She's been
also
around the block a few times, I feel.
so it was weird. Like her voice really stuck out to me, and then I realized, okay, I know her from Tom Jones, but
Mm.
since you just rewatched Darby O'Gill and the Little People, Hunter,
Yes.
you know Pony's mom. She
Yes,
has that
absolutely.
same kind of like lilt in her voice. I'm like, no, this cannot be. Like, there's too much of an age difference, but there are moments there where it sounds eerily similar.
It is note for note the same. And then, of course, oh, what was she on? I was going to say the Lady Killers, Kind Hearts and Coronets as well.
Yep.
So yeah, she's definitely she's just become one of those. Oh yeah, you people, because I watch Darby every year. Thanks, Michael Lyons. And then I'm quite fond of that one. And watching this, it was like she did other things too.
But it's not her. That's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's so close though. It's one of those double take situations.
Hmm. I'm also trying to think like when was Herbert Lom's like big? I don't know when did he ever really hit it big? What would be his biggest performance? Because like he was
Revenge of the Pink Panther.
but that's after this. This
Right.
is this is after Lady Killers where he's like the main antagonist in that.
I mean, I know he was around for a while. I think he did a film. He was a villain in a film for Terrence Fisher in like 1947.
Mhm.
So he had been working.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like if he shows up, people like, oh, it's Herbert Lom or oh, it's that guy. He also like I've seen a lot of Herbert Lom movies and he did not look very Herbert Lomish in this, to me at least. But um I don't know. Is he like would he have been treated as like the guest star or the guy where oh, it's
He
her.
he gets the credit.
He does. He gets a and Herbert Lom as Captain Nemo on the poster. I mean,
Yep.
I can't think I've ever seen Michael Craig, who actually is still alive, in anything that I can recall. But oh
Yeah,
well.
I don't think I mean, I've seen Herbert Lom in other things, so I mean, he is the biggest star of the cast. But
Yeah.
he's more of that guy. I think he is a star, but he had been in stuff before and after that I have
Hmm.
seen.
Two special shouts. Herbert Lom's full Czech name is quite astonishing. You should go look that up on Wikipedia if you get a moment. And then also his Wikipedia is the first time that I've ever seen the word elocution in a description. So there you go. It is somebody is quite the Herbert Lom aficionado and wordsmith.
Hmm. And you
I
know,
Also,
should look up what his credits are because I know
I brought up the
he's
Lady
been.
Killers, and that's the one that I associate him most with, of course.
I know mostly Lady Killers and Pink Panther, but you also have Spartacus, El Cid. We mentioned Phantom of the Opera. He was in or the original production of The King and I,
Hmm.
and also The Dead Zone, which I don't recall him from that, but also know that you're dealing with with somebody who is a badass when, their birthplace is listed as a country that no longer exists and it has kingdom before it. So Prague, Kingdom
Oh,
of Bohemia in
Ooh,
Austria-Hungary.
there you go. I didn't recognize this, but apparently he was in Hopscotch, so that's a win.
Oh,
that's a win, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I see his I mean, he's been steadily working for pretty much since the 40s. So
hmm
Yeah. I
I
mean, everybody has had nice, long, healthy lives. Like, yeah, I just looked up Michael Craig. He is 97 or 98, depending on when that birth date actually went. Herbert Lom lived to be 95, so
it's
nice
weird.
long, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anything here other than the Lady Killers beforehand that's stands out as huge to me. But that's enough. I mean, he was Napoleon in War and Peace, so I guess that must have been uh, something. That's at least a juicy part. I mean, Henry Fonda and Mel Ferrer is in that film, so that was probably his big movie in the for 50s audiences.
Mm. It's a shame he didn't live long enough to see the Ridley Scott picture. I really wanted his opinion on it.
Well, I guess Lom was in the Hell Drivers, which is, I believe, another Silent Field film. So that's probably how he got the part.
There's a little bit of interesting information on the Wikipedia page about some drama between the cast members and even the producers, which I found pretty interesting. There was one line, oh my God, I wish I pulled it, but here, let's see. Michael Craig called Enfield a dismal arsehole of an expat American, and Schneer was a real Hollywood suit, the epitome of the son-in-law also rises, which is quite the
Wow.
phrase.
I mean, that's something.
Yeah.
I'm looking yeah. Well, I know that the script has three credited uh writers, and I understand more people have worked on it than that. So I think it kind of shows in the final product.
Definitely a bit. But we've talked a lot about our perspective of the movie and kind of how we felt about it, but it's still considered, it's pretty highly regarded. I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes score. It's kind of in that 80% range, which is solid. But like any of these pictures, it's really only 18 reviews or something like that. It's not many, so whatever the average is. But some of the contemporary reviews are always some of my favorite things to read. Particularly this one from Time Magazine that said it should thrill the G Willikers out of anyone, which is why isn't that on the DVD box?
Is that a Bosley Carruthers review?
I'd have to find the actual upload, but yeah, what a treat of a review.
I wonder what Letterboxd says about it,
It's
or the
probably like a 3 average, is my guess.
or even IMDb. I would think that seems about right. I mean, I'm sure it's fondly remembered by boomers and even the older members of Generation X. Like I'd include me, but the I'm sure nobody's watched it after Star Wars came out. The born after Star Wars.
Hmm.
I mean, they may have heard of Harryhausen, but his day was kind of over. Well, with Clash of the Titans. Although it was a nice long run.
Yeah,
oh
for
yeah.
sure. I mean, we could only be so lucky to have that meaningful of an impact and, get to do something so cutting edge and be remembered by those who matter. You're talking about Star Wars and everything like that. There's definitely some of that you're like, oh, where I see where Phil Tippett was like obviously,
Yeah.
pulled so much of this from that and then went on
Attack of the
to
Clones
all of those
very,
pictures.
very much pulls it for the climax.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
well,
Um,
that I was gonna say. Oh, am I?
I will say Harryhausen even works his way into Jurassic Park to an extent too. I feel.
Oh, entirely. You definitely don't get any of the Jurassic Parkism without, or even the way some of those scenes are composed. It's like, well, your imagination fills in the gaps, right? Because it's not clunky. It's very elegant, but it's
Mhm.
limited in what you can do with the technology at the time. And then to move into something after the Star Wars era and do the Jurassic Park dinosaurs, you don't get there without something like this. And I think that's where it's so interesting to look at it from the era consideration is one of the most important things you can look at it with.
It's also something where he and I think like Phil Tippett, Rob Bottin, all of those guys like puppeteers and still kind of get the last laugh because how many special effects artists working within purely CGI today can you name?
Hmm.
None.
Yeah. And I'm sure, obviously they're very talented people in that. And I don't like saying, oh, well, I don't like CG because I don't like
Mhm.
CG, but it is something where even if you are a trailblazer in that field, I don't know, are you going to be held up on that pedestal? Are you going to be remembered the same way a lot of these guys are?
Yeah.
Well, there's probably going to be like dozens, if not hundreds, of special effects guys working on a film, while there's like Ray Harryhausen and a couple assistants.
But even
Yeah.
those who are like supervising it though, and I think like yeah,
Yeah.
with Phil Tippett, like he started shifting from puppeteering to kind of like, okay, I gotta learn CGI with Jurassic Park. And
Hmm.
even then it's
Mhm.
still like more the practical effects that we remember him for. Well, I mean he's still with us, but nice.
Right. And it's so funny. We look at something that is the mass blockbuster that is Jurassic Park, which everyone on the planet has seen, right? But then you also look at just kind of the influence of the Harryhausen reach on, I mean, some of the smallest and most successful cult films. You really don't get the Sam Raimi Deadite effects without tracing it back to Harryhausen. And I think that's so
Hmm.
interesting because you've got what was really cutting edge for the 60s, and then you have this little snot-nosed punk that wants to make his gross Evil Dead movie, and then he's like, yeah, we're gonna throw stop motion in this as well. And then, obviously Sam Raimi, one of the most influential and I think inspiring directors for a large amount of people. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's just fun to trace the lineage because so much of it comes off of this family tree.
Yeah, and Harryhausen feels like he's all over Army of Darkness, which really feels like a Harryhausen tribute in a lot
Well,
of
and
Oh,
ways.
that's
it's entirely.
You also you also get like a lot of Peter Jackson taking a lot of influence from Sam Raimi too, in
Hmm.
addition
Yes.
to Harryhausen.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny seeing like elements of Raimi show up later on into like Lord of the Rings and things like that. There's just enough of that dark sensibility with the orcs and the Deadites and I don't know, I
Hmm.
could do a whole in this essay I will off of this, but it's funny because um I just think that we kind of take it for granted in the sense of it has been around for our entire lives. And I think that's why it's so important to go back and look at the contemporary reviews because, as dated as it might seem, and you might be able to look at it in the sense of like, oh, it's old, but there's such a nice amount of charm to it. To really look at something that was cutting edge at the time and go into
Hmm.
it with that mindset kind of completely recontextualizes the whole thing. What is a Saturday morning cartoon to
Yeah.
me is somebody's Star Wars in the right era. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
no wonder it was such an inspiration for the creatives that came later on down the line.
it was for me when I first saw these scenes in when I was like 7 years old.
Hmm.
Uh, and did you watch it with Libby, Nat?
I did not. she's more eager to see The Thing, and
Nice.
this is my 7-year-old. But I think they have seen 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I'll get them to see a Harryhausen movie, one of these. I think they've seen King Kong. We actually did just a few weeks ago see Jurassic Park, and they did
Nice.
very much
Yeah.
enjoy that. But no, this is, I mean, they have an appreciation um for some of these older films and things like that. It's really weird. Like they are not very not very snobbish about kind of like old school practical effects. And I don't know if this is something where it's a little bit of a generational thing where, especially when it comes to like video game graphics, it is easy for them to slip into something that can have like hyper realism. I don't think they actually even play any games that are like that. With like a lot of their video games, like Minecraft and Roblox, they have an intentionally blocky kind of basic sort of aesthetic to them, where there's still a lot of room for the imagination to fill in like those blanks, and
Hmm.
they're not snobbish about those sorts of graphics, whether it be for a game or just practical effects for a movie. And if anything, I think they can kind of like appreciate some of the practical effects more. Like they have way more of
Hmm.
a tolerance for older films. So
Mhm.
um, and I don't think that's just my kids. I think that's like a lot of the kids growing up now.
Right. And there's an interesting discussion to be had there. Like on one hand, well, it's kind of like point one, point two, so bear with me here, but I do love the rejection that's kind of happening of the entirely digital culture that we're seeing from so many people that have, or so many, kids and young people that have grown up in the digital age. I'm a young person, but I'm in my 30s. So it's like I was right at the cusp and I had physical stuff that then
Hmm.
all went digital, and I never let go of my physical stuff because it's what I grew up with. But for the
Mhm.
kids that came after me, it's like all it was digital. To have them go, wait, but like I want to hold this. I want to
Hmm.
have something tangible because there is a difference. I mean, I might not have seen a practical effect movie before, but there is something different about that is real that I cannot get in just the CG landscape. And it's not about realism and it's not about what's the cutting edge effect. It's more about, did this come from a uh, is there the human touch to it, and that's what I think
Mhm.
so many people are reacting to. And to the second point that kind of relates to that, I would love to have watched this with less of a worldly perspective or a cinephile perspective, like just to enjoy it through the eyes of a child or somebody who isn't comparing it to 30 years of watching movies or anything like that. What is this like if you're watching this for the first time with a really cool uncle or your grandfather or
Hmm.
whoever, and you're 5 years old? Like, is this like, oh my God, that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen? Because you can make it, you can see that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're not reviewing it from the target audience, which was targeted at kids.
And
Uh,
teenagers who wanted to make
Oh
out.
yeah.
yes, yes. But I mean, I feel like you can see the qualities that are there because the special effects are good. It is
Hmm.
colorful. It does move at a nice pace. I mean, I understand why I would have no problem showing it to a kid.
Hmm.
I think they would still enjoy it.
Yeah. I think too, I one of the things I really like about Harryhausen, and I think if you watch documentaries on Harryhausen, it's not simply just that he's very good at making puppets move, but it's the thought that he puts into it and how he tries to create a personality with
Mhm.
each movement. And that's one thing again, I'm
I
not
think
the
that's the highlight of the Terror Bird sequence. It's just the little
I
flapping of wings. They're useless.
yeah. And it's tough that it's animals here, but again, I really like Seventh Voyage of Sinbad,
Hmm.
because you get a lot of variety of creatures within that. And I think that talent for crafting a personality through stop motion really comes out. And I think, that's the big takeaway, no matter what medium you're working through, that you can sort of make that connection, whether you're doing it, with stop motion, whether you're doing it with a more articulated puppet or even CGI, but putting in that level of detail into whatever thing you're crafting is kind of like that through line. And I think that's the thing that appeals to you, regardless of how old one can be.
Well, heck, I know you and I watched Beast for 20,000 Fathoms on the big
Yeah.
screen down in Chicago, and you could just watch the creature and the cat-like movement of the tails, and you kind of know somebody thought about how this thing would work
Hmm.
and made it come alive, and that little detail is what I expect out of Harryhausen and
Yeah.
what we get out of Harryhausen,
Hmm.
or even just the
Here's
clacking of the claws of the crab
yeah.
and the way it scuttles sideways.
Hmm.
And it came up so early on, but yes, that's part of the charm is the oversized crab claw prop that's, grabbing our characters here. It's just the seamless touch of that too is so well done. When we talk about the 50s creature flicks and stuff, they're done so cheap and so quick. There's so much jank, and that's part of the charm, right? Is that
Hmm.
jankiness. But here it was a very elegant um it's a ballet, of these effects working together, and I think that's where we really saw things advance and find its footing as we headed on into the next special effects era, heading into the next decade. But I watched for the first time, I want to say about 2 years ago. I watched the Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm, and there's this great sequence that has the jeweled dragon at the end of it. And so much of that stuff can still just absolutely take your breath away because it's so unlike anything that you get today. And the Harryhausen, it's not played into a comedic element, but there's charm to the just admiring something of a bygone age because they don't do that anymore. And I'm like, I don't know, not to go down this tangent, but I'm so worried about losing so much of that as we head into this AI generation, especially the replication of stop motion in
Yeah.
particular has me very curious what's going to happen with that art form as time goes on. And yeah, it's that human touch is going to become more important, and it might only um, my appreciation of it might only increase as time goes on as we head into more of a digital computer generated age.
That and I feel like now things I feel kind of a little bit over color corrected, and I wonder if we've lost something too, especially since I know desaturation seems to be a big thing for Hollywood these days. But I look
Hmm.
at Mysterious Island is so colorful, and they want the
Hmm.
colors to pop, and I feel that that's something that's lost. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's one of my worries about the Odyssey. But we will see. We will see what Christopher Nolan, because I generally trust him, but it will not be like Harryhausen. I can guarantee you that.
I just need a sequence where Nolan embraces all the color sensibilities of some of these older things. Um, it's never a bad thing to have color, especially in your superhero movies. I would love more color in my superhero pulp. Just in pulp entertainment, I would love more color than what we've currently got.
Well, you always have Dick Tracy.
That's
That's
right.
true.
That's right.
Well,
Well,
Robert, I don't have too much more in my notes, but I did have one burning scientific question for you.
okay.
So there is an instance when we meet Nemo, and he's demonstrating basically how something sinks with the use of what is clearly an Erlenmeyer flask, and yet he refers to it as a bottle. Did this infuriate you?
Infuriate, no, but you are clearly. If now it's going to infuriate me in the future, because you are clearly correct.
Hmm.
Although I don't
How?
know when Erlenmeyer or when the flask was named,
So
so
I was thinking of that as well. And if you give me a moment here.
This is such a treat.
Oh yeah, this is all right. So I believe so they don't obviously refer to it as an Erlenmeyer flask in that they refer to it as a bottle, but it is clearly an Erlenmeyer flask. Now, Emil Erlenmeyer, for whom the flask is named, lived from 1825 to 1909. So he invented it in 1860. Now, this movie
It's in 1865.
takes
Yes.
place in 1865. However, Nemo has been on the island for how long?
14 years, I think they say.
Okay. How did Nemo get a hold of an Erlenmeyer flask? Or was he the inventor of the Erlenmeyer flask? And should we call it the Nemo flask?
Well, we could go into the fact that, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea takes place in like 1870.
And has nuclear power. Yes, we've reconciled that previously. But this is much more important for the scientific community.
I agree.
I think you caught him in an error there, Nat.
Okay.
You should go to IMDb and add it to trivia.
I sure hope somebody lost their job over that one. Now, what is this the most misnamed piece of scientific equipment?
But the Erlenmeyer flask?
Yes.
Or
the flask in general. But basically, if there's a flask somewhere in the shelves of science, it's going to be an Erlenmeyer flask.
Yes, there is. What would you think the name should be?
I actually think the name Erlenmeyer flask is pretty awesome. I think flask is pretty cool. I've always had a tendency to refer to it as a beaker because I just think of like
beakers have straight sides though.
I know they do. I know. But I correct myself. I'm like, nope.
Or a graduated cylinder.
Well, that's just crazy. That's just irresponsible. I was going to ask some questions about the hot air balloon and the prevalence of hot air balloons in the 1860s, but I know that they exist. They did exist. They'd been around for, I think, probably close to 100 years at that point. But,
a hot air balloon going across the United States into the Pacific, almost to New Zealand, is, and they're going in the wrong direction, too. So the prevailing wind is west to east, not east to west.
I should have asked about the balloon then. What about growth hormones in the mid-19th century South Pacific?
I don't know, but Nemo has nuclear power, so
touche.
He's a man of many sciences.
Okay, and yet he refers to an Erlenmeyer flask as a beaker or as a bottle.
A bottle, yes.
I refer to it as a beaker, but I correct myself. Any other
science? It's the best flask, though.
Any other scientific gaffes?
I don't think so necessarily, although I do wonder how they're going to get all that water out of the ship to get it to float again. And that must be an awful tough balloon to not only go across the country, but to stay intact while you're inflating a boat.
Were the size of the caves appropriate? That's a
good question. Yeah, I would. That looks like it does look like it's a limestone cave with stalagmites in that, but it's clearly a volcanic island, so that makes no sense to me.
I know. This is I will give context for this, Hunter. Robert is very particular whenever there is a shot of sewers or any underground cavernous structure in movies.
Look, these are important things to consider. I think that it's essential. I did have a pun here that I was looking for the right opportunity to bring up. What do you guys think about the literal honeymoon suite?
Ooh,
that is good.
Thank you.
If you don't have kids, you should get them because you've already got the dad joke card.
I graduated from the Fozzie Bear School of Bad Jokes and Rubber Chickens, so here we are.
Wow.
Well, the master.
Ah, yes. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. But yeah, the honeymoon suite was something I've been sitting on this whole time, waiting for the proper moment to deploy. I don't
You
know,
know, we
guys.
never did talk about the bees anyhow, did we?
I like the
Uh,
bees.
I
I
like
think
the
just
bees
bees are
too.
cool by themselves. I think the bee is minus the big cephalopod or octopus, whatever it is at the bottom of the ocean. I think the bee is probably my favorite creature slash sequence. There's just something about a big old honeybee that's like kind of cute, but also scary. And that's a
Yeah.
good balance for me.
Mhm. Was it a bee or was it a, I mean it's
It's a
clearly
bee.
intended to refer to be a bee. It has a honeycomb, but was it a yellow jacket or a wasp? More in design, or was it an actual bee design?
I think it was an actual bee design, but I'm no expert.
Okay.
I need to go back, extract that footage, and lay Jerry Seinfeld dialogue over the top of it. I think it'll really add quite a bit to this B movie sequence.
Yeah. That and then have, yeah, like Elena's dialogue be well, I have to confess I've never seen B movie, so I don't know the character names outside of Jerry
That's
Seinfeld's
we'll
character being
just we'll
Barry
just make it a
B.
lane dialogue anyways. There's plenty to cut from.
That actually
Yeah.
would be great. And then we'll have yeah, we'll have what's his name be George, and then we'll have Nemo as Kramer.
Oh,
And
oh my God. I would love to see the Seinfeld version of this. I think, I feel like what movie would you remake starring the Muppets? It's a little overplayed now. I feel like everybody's got an opinion. The obvious answer is The Wicker Man, the original. Like that is the Muppet remake. But what movie would you remake using primetime Seinfeld cast? Is the next evolution of that.
the one thing that's tough though is that if you have Kramer as Nemo, you really lose out on the opportunity for them to say hello, Nemo, if he's not played by Newman.
That's true. I think Newman makes a great Nemo, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's too good.
Okay, so we'll
and,
recast
and
it.
then
The
when
journal.
he dies at the end, that they won't feel sorry at all.
That's
Yes,
true, but they
exactly.
they won't be praising or talking about his good deeds. So it'll just be like,
Oh, he's
let's just get
dead.
out of
Yeah,
here.
this guy.
Perfect. Perfect.
No notes.
No
That's a
hugging.
great. I don't think we can get a better closer than that, guys. Like I think that's how we end it.
Yes, I think it is.
I agree.
So, Nat, you have next month's movie. What's it going to be?
Oh wow. Okay. So I was totally not prepared for this, but I actually was kind of prepared for this. Because it was since you guys hated Kinzaza, and I still don't understand why.
I don't want to say hated.
You hated it, just admit it. Let's see here. I think it is still available. I will double check. But I was thinking of going for the classic, and I'm not just vamping and stalling for time. I actually do have this here. Um, there's okay. I'm really torn here. I do want to do this. Let's do it. It's April. I'm going for the classic UFO Oria or Euphoria.
I don't think I've ever seen it. And I now it's bringing something in the back of my head, but I don't know anything about it. Is Cindy Williams in that one?
Uh, yes, she is. This is
Okay.
1985. It is science fiction comedy directed by John Bender, starring my beloved Fred Ward, but also Harry Dean Stanton and Harry
Ooh.
Carey Jr.
Ooh.
and Cindy Williams. This actually has a obscenely high review or rating from Roger Ebert. I think he actually gave this like 4 stars. Um,
What?
Wow.
yeah. Um, I don't think anyone has ever heard of it. It's very difficult to find, but I think I was able to actually track it down on YouTube of all places. Let me just confirm right now that it is still there. But this was one that I've been circling around. It's short, it's sweet. I have not seen it yet, but I am very intrigued by it. All right, it is still
I'm
there.
intrigued too.
And it's a good old
Okay.
like rip from a VHS copy.
Oh, the
Um,
best.
yeah,
Love it.
so that is quality.
4K, ripped from a VHS. That's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that's excellent. So, thank you for coming on again, Hunter. Before we go, where can our listeners find you if they want to follow up with you? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to just thank you guys for spending the evening with me and letting me do the same with you all. I had a blast, and like I said, even if the movie wasn't like it didn't skyrocket to the top of my adaptation list or sci-fi list or anything like that, I still had a really good time discussing it, and every time I look at it on my shelf, I'm going to associate it with this podcast. So that's
okay,
always fun. Yeah, that's a good thing. And like I said, that disc is beautiful. So if you did like the movie, go check it out. But yeah, if you want to keep up with me, the best place to do so, well, if you want to listen to me do a lot of movie coverage, go back and check out Disorder Every Disney Film. We started off looking back at each Disney animated film from the Walt Disney Picture Studio in order. All the mainline films, none of the spin-offs or anything like that. So Snow White all the way up until I actually forgot what the last one was it was before Moana 2. So whatever was before Moana 2 is
Strange
where we
World.
kind of hang it up. Strange World, I think you're right. Yeah, which is strangely related to this movie in weird ways now that I think about it. So there you go. But Strange World. But we covered a lot of other Disney flicks, so you can go check that out. But my home podcast is one that Robert mentioned at the top. It's called Grinning Hosts. It's a tribute to all things pop culture, but mostly theme parks, to steal a line from our friend Sam Eagle. So go check that out if you like. Horrors from the Vault, a tribute to Tales from the Crypt. But most importantly, if you want just a nice, easy place to keep up with me, you can find me on Letterboxd at discount Vincent Price. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you, Hunter.
Yeah.
So that should wrap up this episode. If our listeners have questions or comments, you can email us at guyspodcast@gmail.com or leave us a note on Facebook. Or also feel free to leave a review or like and share links on social media. Thanks for listening. We hope you'll join us next month for Euphoria. Bye.
Take care.
Watch the skies, everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the skies.